Hello, my name is Chris, and welcome to the very first episode of Indecent Exposure. Wow, that's really what we're going to call it. This series will delve into the strange and often emotionally scarring world of Xbox Live indie games. Yes, there are some really terrible games that make their way onto this marketplace, but there are also some real gems if you know where to look. So each week, every Thursday, I'm going to choose a game to put in the spotlight, and, well, in truth, I don't really know what to expect. But you never know, we may find the occasional surprise that you may indeed want to check out yourself. Those of you that have peeked into the indie marketplace before, only to have fled when you saw games like Don't Die Dateless Dummy, may still be unconvinced that there's any hope for quality indie games on the 360. So, we're going to start with a good one. DLC Quest is a game based around the ridicule of downloadable content. You start the game as the hero, of course, in a quest to save the princess from the bad guy. The game itself is a very basic platformer, but you can't do anything without purchasing the relevant DLC first, and I mean anything. When you start the game, you can only move right, you can't jump, there's no sound or animation, and you'll even need to purchase the ability to pause the game. Thankfully, all this DLC can be purchased using the in-game currency of giant golden coins, but you'll get the idea pretty quickly. The developer that created DLC Quest enjoys poking fun at just how much DLC is available in today's market, and it turns out he's pretty damn good when it comes to satire. You see, this game isn't really much of a game. You'll jump from platform to find more coins, and there's some exploration required, but your character can't take damage, and it's impossible to fail. The gameplay is used to explain the joke, and it's the developer's humour that will keep you engaged. Sure, you'll want to find as many coins as possible, but only to see how each unlock continues to play with the idea of DLC. As you can see for yourself, DLC Quest has some great 16-bit visuals, and is well complemented by its retro soundtrack, well, once you've unlocked it that is. And it is worth pointing out here that Going Loud Studios is a one-man development team, and so these graphics were obviously more feasible to work with than anything more complex. However, the fact that all of this DLC nonsense is contained within a world that reminds you of a time before you could spend real-life money to purchase armour for your horse in Oblivion certainly adds to the overall joke. If you're looking for a tricky indie platformer, then this isn't going to be the game for you. Instead, if you find the idea of a game that's essentially just a playful dig at some of the worst aspects of DLC, then I'd highly recommend that you give this a playthrough. It's priced at 80 Microsoft points, but you will probably play through the entire thing in just under an hour. DLC Quest is also available on the PC and Mac, so if you'd rather not risk entering the indie marketplace, then maybe that's an option. And to end this first episode, I'm joined by the developer of DLC Quest, Mr. Ben Kane. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. So DLC Quest has been one of the more popular indie games on the 360 since its release. What do you think draws people to your game in particular?
Honestly, I think a big part of the appeal on the Xbox indie marketplace is just a catchy-looking box art. It's kind of sad to say, but I think a lot of the gamers that go there aren't looking for anything in particular, so it's just something that stands out in the crowd that gets you enough trials to push you up those charts. I'd like to say that it's maybe some widespread feeling of gamers thinking that DLC has just gone too far and they're really looking to stick it to the man, but I don't think it's anything as complex as that. It's probably just box art.
Yeah, the indie section on the Xbox marketplace is pretty crowded and there's plenty of bad games on there. How do you make sure that you're not lost amongst them?
Really, I think the best thing you can do is have a strong launch. The way the marketplace is set up, the games that are performing better and getting more downloads and better ratings are the ones that gamers are more likely to see. So if you can have a strong launch and propel your game up those charts, then they're more likely to get those downloads again, and they basically kind of stick there. It's this weird scenario where the rich get richer, and if you aren't noticed right off the bat, there's a good chance you'll just sink and never be seen again.
So publicity when you first start your launch is that key? Did you have to try and contact a lot of different publications, try and get your game out there?
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely one area where I don't think anyone's got it totally figured out, and I'm certainly not the one who knows the most about it, but I try out new things all the time just to see what sticks. One thing that I found particularly effective is to stay really active on Twitter. And if you can basically befriend a lot of other gamers and journalists and talk to them genuinely on a day-to-day basis, it makes it a lot easier to get their attention when you do have something that you're about to release. Much better than just going dark for 6 or 8 months and then suddenly trying to contact all of the gaming press and say, hey, pay attention to me, because they just won't.
And now 6 months later, you've just released DLC Quest on the Mac App Store. How's that been going for you?
It's been going spectacularly well, much better than I could have expected, really. One of the strange things about it was the game actually came out on Mac back in February when I launched it on PC. I did kind of this dual launch on Desura. But Desura doesn't really have a Mac client going for them, so they don't drive a lot of Mac traffic. And I guess Mac gamers just weren't aware of it there, or certainly the Mac App Store is just a lot more accessible. So it was just kind of this cursory thing where I decided I would go through the release process and see what it was like to put a game on the Mac App Store. And then suddenly it's kind of exploded again, and it's doing really well.
Does it surprise you to see that this game that you released 6 months ago, it's almost rejuvenated the interest in it just by heading over to the Mac App Store?
It really is. It's the best kind of surprise, though. The game itself took me maybe 2 months to make, and I was really hoping just to see a nice return to make those 2 months worthwhile. Maybe it would stay on the Xbox charts for 2-3 weeks, and make a bit of money to make that worth the time investment, and then I would move on to something else. But instead, it's caught on the Xbox marketplace. It did rather well on PC, and now it's come back around. It's doing well on Mac again. So it's definitely a surprise. I didn't expect to still be kind of dealing with this game 6 months on, but I'll take it any day of the week.
The rest of that interview will be up on Piki Geek tomorrow at some point. If you're interested in the development process that goes into games like DLC Quest, then make sure to check it out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.